Like I mentioned before, when Cliff and Stephen started asking about special keynote speakers, Brian was at the top of their list, and he was good enough to, I wrote him, and the same day he wrote me back and said, I'm on. So it's really nice. And then it was great that Mira, his wife, joined us as well. And Brian's on the board of trustees at Brentwood, and they have two kids, Davis, who had his birthday yesterday, and Madison in our lower school. So, Brian, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Could you share a little bit about your background and your personal journey?
Sure. Well, I'm just really happy to be here, honestly. It's like I look at all these Brentwood alumni, and I'm honestly so proud of all of you, and I hope our children follow in your footsteps, because you guys are all so smart and kind and just pillars of the community, and I want my children to end up like that. So, but my journey started, I was born in Korea, in Seoul, but I grew up in Orange County, and then I went to school at UCLA for undergrad and law school. After graduating law school, I ended up working for firms, large kind of firms, and did tax law, of all things, and I was never a very good lawyer. I was actually a terrible lawyer. Like if you came to me with a parking ticket, you would probably end up in jail. You know, I was that bad, honestly. And then I was honestly kind of shocked at how much they were billing out my time at, because I was like, I am not worth that. So I ended up working at the law firm, working around the clock, truthfully. And I actually enjoyed the people I worked with. I thought they were incredibly smart, hardworking, but I didn't enjoy the work, right? I didn't enjoy the subject matter. And I never felt this sense of accomplishment working at the firm. And so I always knew I wanted to do something else. And that's when my best friend from law school, his name's Brian also, we're the two Brians, we came up with the idea for LegalZoom, and then we went and started LegalZoom.com was our first company.
And when did you first think about, I want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think I was born wanting to be an entrepreneur. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are. Truthfully, I think you have a certain DNA that says, you know what, I want to go start something, I want to go build something. I told you this story before, Dave, but I still remember, like, it was just Halloween, and so I remember when I was little, I used to go trick-or-treating. I was always the first person to go trick-or-treating in our neighborhood. Like, if the sun was still out, I was like, ding-dong, trick-or-treat. And I would collect so much candy, like a whole bag of candy, and then I would go home. I would put 4 candies into Ziploc bags and then sell them at school the next day for 25 cents. That was like my foray into entrepreneurship. So I think I always kind of wanted to build something. I've always been motivated by not just financial, but just creating stuff. Right. And so it's, interestingly, it's like I meet a lot of folks who come to me and say, I want to be an entrepreneur someday. I'm working at so-and-so company, or I'm working at this, accounting firm, or wherever they are. And they say, I just want to gain some more experience and then go start something. And my answer to them is always like, why not today? Honestly, it's like, why not now? It's like, it's someone told me something once, and someone I used to work for, he said, it's never the right time, right? You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough money saved up. You're never going to get enough experience. If you're going to go do something, you should just go do it, right? And I really took that to heart, because when we started LegalZoom, it wasn't easy, right? It was.
Now, why don't you talk a little bit about how it came about and what were the biggest challenges for your first big venture? Yeah,
this is back in 1999, believe it or not. LegalZoom was the overnight success that took 20 years. But it was back in 99, 2000, and a lot of you are too young to remember this, but 2000 was not a good year for internet. It was kind of a miserable year, but that's when we decided to start raising money for LegalZoom. And I remember that our very first venture capital meeting was with Brian Liu's uncle, who was a VC, and the day the NASDAQ crashed was the day that we had our first meeting. And we knocked on the door, and he answers the door, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" We're like, "We're here to pitch you our internet idea." And he sat us down, and he looked at us, and he said, "The internet, it's over." Seriously, that's what he said. He said, "It's over. It's never coming back." And we were looking at him like, "What are you talking? It's just a little bump in the NASDAQ. It's okay. It's coming back." He's just like, no, you guys got to go get your jobs, because we had quit our jobs already, right? He's like, "You guys got to go get your jobs back, because you're never going to raise money for this idea." And we're like, "Oh, shoot," right? So I remember we didn't say shoot, by the way, but we walked across the street to Benihana. We're sitting at Benihana, and the dude's like, chop the steak in front of us, and we're devastated. We're like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do?" So we look at each other, and we're like, how much do you really believe in this idea, right? And we honestly, we both looked at each other, and we're like 100%. Like, we had zero doubt that people would rather pay $1,000 for a will than $59 for a will and have it automated, right? And so for us, it just made sense. It just made sense. And so the hardest part, the biggest challenge was capital. Like, nobody gave us money, like nobody, right? The only people who gave us money were my parents and his parents. They lent us a little bit of cash to sustain us. And they honestly thought we would just like go get our jobs back. But I remember we hit up about 25 VC firms here in the Valley. They all said no. And we were like, "Oh my God, no one's gonna give us money." So then we started asking friends and family for money. And initially they would ask like, "Hey, what's the minimum investment?" And we were like $25,000. And it became like $10,000. And then I remember one of Brian Liu's friends said, "Can I invest $500?" And we took it. It was tough, but so we raised $50,000 for LegalZoom, and started the company.
Now, how did Robert Shapiro get involved?
Robert Shapiro, it was interesting because back in, again, a lot of you guys won't remember this, some of you will, but the number one concern for the internet back in '99 and 2000 was it was so new, right? People were scared of it, right? They were scared to put their credit card number into a computer to even buy something and transact. It was relatively new. They didn't trust it. And so with LegalZoom, we weren't just asking for credit card information. We were asking for a bunch of personal information, right? So we're asking, it's like if you're setting up a living trust, we're asking you for your account information at your bank, your kids' social security numbers. I mean, we're asking for a bunch of stuff. And so we realized the number one issue with LegalZoom would be trust, right? Like who would trust LegalZoom and not think it was some fly-by-night business? And so we're like, okay, we got to get somebody attached to this that people would recognize instantly. And for us, it wasn't even a matter of, do you like this attorney? It's, do you recognize this attorney? And at that time, Robert Shapiro just came off the OJ trial, right? And so he was world famous. And so we put him up on the site, and we thought, okay, that will solve a lot of the trust issue. And it worked, right? Because people instantly recognized him and said, okay, well, he wouldn't be running a company and just trying to take all of our information.
Now, did he easily buy in, or was it, how'd you get him?
Yeah, that's a fun story. So we, when I was, I was at Skadden Arps, that's the law firm, and my network just wasn't very large, and neither was Brian Liu's. We didn't know him, and we didn't know. We called everybody we knew. We're like, "Do you know Robert Shapiro? Do you know Robert Shapiro?" And everyone's like, "No." So I actually called information one night. It was 411. This is for all you. This is pre-Google, right? Where you actually would call 411, and I asked for Robert Shapiro, attorney, Century City. And I get this phone number, and it was like 10 p.m. at night, or 9 or 10 p.m. at night, and I had a voice message written out for him that I was going to leave on his machine, and he picked up the phone, right? He's like, "Hello." I'm like, "Hi, I'm calling for Robert Shapiro." He says, "This is Robert Shapiro. How can I help you?" And the first thing I said was, "Robert Shapiro, the attorney?" He says, "Yes." I go, well, my name is Brian Lee, and I have a business idea I'd like to share with you. and the first thing he said was, I'm not interested. Right? And I could honestly tell he was about to hang up. Like he was ready to hang up. And I remember I just yelled, wait. I go, wait. Right? I go, how do you know you're not interested if you don't hear me out? Right? And it's like, I think he definitely heard the desperation, in my voice. And then I remember the words were, you've got 2 minutes, right? And in those 2 minutes, I told him the whole pitch for LegalZoom. And at the end of it, he said, you know what, I get a lot of calls and a lot of people pitch me on a lot of things, but I actually really like this one. Why don't you call back tomorrow at a regular time, and we'll set up a lunch meeting. And so that was how LegalZoom started.
And that kind of ties into what you said. You really believed in it.
Oh, yeah.
You and Brian really believed in it, and you were ready to tell Robert Shapiro to wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, absolutely. The other thing is, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have faced this. When your back's against the wall, you're like a little rat. You'll just do anything. You're just like, just give it to me. Yeah. So I think that's what I became a rat that night.
So Brian, what advice do you have for people who are looking to, what are the important elements to be successful, do you think?
Gosh, there's so many. I would say the most important thing is belief. Belief in yourself, belief in your concept or idea, belief in your team. I think it's a lot about passion. Be passionate about what you're working on, because in any business, especially when you start one, there's ups and downs, right? And the ups feel really up and the downs are really down, right? And so when you're at the bottom, and you're honestly, you feel like, gosh, how am I going to get out of this, or how am I going to solve this, or how am I going to break through? The only thing that's going to get you there is your own belief and passion. So definitely that combination.
Could you talk a little bit about your founding team? I mean, how do you who do you surround yourself with that you can really trust as you start out something like that?
Yeah. So, gosh, I've started a few companies. So, on LegalZoom, it was Brian Liu, who was my best friend. Robert Shapiro was kind of like the face of the company, and Eddie Hartman was our technology co-founder. And Eddie, we had known for a long time. He was like one of the only technologists in Los Angeles at that time, and he was terrific. He lives up here now, actually. So that was the founding team there. And you want to surround yourself with people who are more kind of domain experts in certain categories than you. So for me, it's like I'm an idea guy. I come up with a lot of ideas. And I'll A/B test everything, right, all the time, because I just have a lot of ideas. Brian Liu is more analytical, like he's very analytical, so it was a really good yin-yang combo that way, because I would want to try everything, and he would be like, no, let's hold back and make sure it works. People often joke that LegalZoom, if I was the only one that was running it, it would have gone under quick. And if Brian Liu was running it, it would have never started. And so it was like a really good, push-pull kind of combo there.
When you're looking at investing in companies, what are the most important things you look for?
Yeah, so right now I'm running something called BAM Ventures. BAM stands for Brian and Mira, my wife, who's sitting back there. But we started BAM Ventures I'd say about 3 years ago now, and so we do a lot of seed stage kind of investing, mostly in the Los Angeles area, and we focus on consumer-facing plays as well as brand, as well as software as it relates to or enables commerce. Basically, we stick to what we know, right? So we don't do biotech, we don't do energy, we don't do a lot of different things, but we stick to what we know. And what we look for in is kind of the thesis at BAM is pretty simple. We have to love the team and not hate the idea, and it's harder to do than it seems, because you fall in love with ideas. You're always like, that's such a great idea, right? It's like, and we started doing this early at BAM, and we realized that's where we lost all our money, right, on ideas. It's like, where you're going to invest, especially at the seed stage, it's all about the team. right? Because all of you know this, strong teams know how to just make even bad things work, right? They'll figure it out. They'll scrap through it, and they'll pivot. They'll do whatever it takes to make something work. And those are the teams that we like to invest in.
As you reflect back on your career, and you're still a young man, what would you look at as a low points or high points?
Oh, gosh. Low points? There's so many of them. Let's see. I would probably say my low point was when I actually decided to start a frozen yogurt company. I rarely talk it. Is this private, by the way? Because I rarely talk about my true failures. But I remember LegalZoom was in Hollywood, and there's a little strip mall next to us, and one of the places had gone under, and it was for lease. And I called Pinkberry at the time, and I said, "Oh gosh, you guys should open a Pinkberry on Hollywood and La Brea." And they're like, no, we're not looking at that location. I'm like, darn, because I loved Pinkberry at the time, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to open my own. And so I opened something called Cantaloupe Frozen Yogurt, right? It was the same yogurt as Pinkberry with the toppings and the whole thing. And I was like, oh, this is going to crush it, right? I'm going to build 1,000 Cantaloupes. So I opened Cantaloupe. And it was the most miserable experience of my life, right? I was just like, oh my God, this is so hard. Like, how do people open frozen yogurt stores? And I remember it was silly. Like, we had a general manager. I went in there one day, we had 20 boxes of strawberries. I'm like, dude, why do we have 20 boxes of strawberries? He's like, they're on sale. We're not going to use 20 boxes of strawberries before this war. So these are the things you deal with when you have a frozen yogurt store. And so for me, it's that's when I realized, after the failure of Cantaloupe, I realized, you know what, if you're gonna put your energy into something, if you're gonna try to start something or build something, start something that has potential to be really big and something that could really make impact. Because it really is just as hard to open a pizza shop as it is to start LegalZoom. You might as well build something that has potential.
How about high points?
High points. Gosh, I'm one of those rare people that don't celebrate high points, because all I see are more hurdles coming, and that's the truth. It's I don't sit there and celebrate a lot of things. I should. Because I do look back on my career and the companies I've built, and I feel very, pleased and satisfied and fulfilled. But at the same time, I can't remember any one point where yay. Oh, actually, I'll take that back. There was one, and this was a LegalZoom story again. I remember we had launched the company, and the only people who had ordered something from us was my mom, Brian Liu's dad, my sister actually ordered a living trust, and that was it, right? And it was just crickets for a long time. And then basically we were up at Berkeley. Yeah. And we went to the library to get online, and we checked the order tool, and we had an order, right? And I'll say his name, Sasan Dastardi from Miami, Florida, right? And we were looking at the order tool, and we're like, who is that? And we were all looking at each other do you know him? Is he your friend? It's who is this guy? So we end up calling him, idiots. We ended up calling him, and we're hello, we're calling for Sasan Dastardi. This is, and we had made up names, by the way. God, what was my name? My name was Brian Helsey, and Brian Liu was Nicolette Helsey. He was customer service, and I would take care of the other calls. So, because we never wanted to say, hey, this is the CEO and co-founder of LegalZoom, right? So we would make up names this is Brian Helsey from LegalZoom calling to confirm your order. And she's like, yes, that's my order, da-da-da, when can I expect it? And it was honestly the most exciting moment of the entire LegalZoom history ever. It was the best $79 I've ever made in my life. Oh, it felt great.
That's great. It seems like everyone's, is trying to come up with the next app or the next, e-commerce business. Where do you see the industry going, and what do you think the opportunities and pitfalls are ahead?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, there's so many great ideas though still. And you know what's amazing is like everybody, especially people like me who invest in companies, are always like, where's the next innovation coming from? Or what's next? And something always is next, right? It's pretty amazing. If you think about America and this great country we live in, it's a country of creative people, right? And innovators and believers. And that's what's going to really, keep the USA going. But it's, when I look at e-commerce especially, it's hard. I'll be honest with you, it is hard because of that one company called Amazon, right? So if you're going to do anything in e-commerce, you constantly have to ask yourself, how is Amazon going to kill me, right? How are they going to kill me? And if there's any remote chance that they can, they will, right? And so that's why e-commerce is hard. You gotta hit e-commerce with angles, right? That Amazon isn't doing, or hit categories that Amazon isn't doing. I think Wish is a perfect example of something that you can do, which is a shopping. I'm not sure if anybody knows Wish, but they're importing directly from China and bringing these savings to people. So there are plays in e-commerce. It's just rare. Okay. Apps. I mean, there's all sorts of apps. I mean, it's like everyone has an app idea. To your point. Yeah. And we've seen some good ones, but that's also hard. I think even the social networking is hard. But at the same time, it's like even if it's not e-commerce or an app, there's so many things happening, and it's a great time to be in technology. I think you all know this. It's amazing, like what's coming down the pipeline from not just AI, but or AR and VR. It's the drones. It's I was just pitched the other day on an asteroid mining company, and I was fascinating. It was fascinating. I mean, if you think about how much palladium is in the closest asteroid, it's unreal, right? And the technology is going to be there, and not in our lifetime, where we could actually do that. And I think that's super exciting. I think hologram technology is super exciting. It's like I saw this hologram thing out in Korea, and I mean it's like the person's there, right? I mean they've got the technology going. And I was looking at that, I was like, how can I make money from this, right? And I think someone will. I mean, I think there's a whole case study to be made about someone who acquires all the rights to estates, right, of past performers and past entertainers, and bring them back to life again. I mean, it's like the Tupac thing down at Coachella. I mean, that was just, it wasn't that great, truthfully. I mean, if you look at it, it's not real, but it's almost there. And I'd say we're only probably 5-6 years away from full commercial viability of that.
Well, thank you. We're going to open it up for questions. One thing I wanted to mention, the first time I met Brian and Mira, I got a call from Brentwood alum Matt Saran, class of 2004, and he was working for Shoe Dazzle, and his boss was applying to Brentwood, and he said, would you have lunch with me and Brian and Mira? And I said, sure. And so that's the first time we met. I just wanted to ask you quickly, what attracted you to Brentwood School?
You did. I mean, Mira knows this is the truth, because we talked about this. The reason why Brentwood School was like the #1 choice for our 2 kids. If you ever go down to the lower school and see 2 really cute Asian kids, those are mine. But it was really every time we met like someone from Brentwood that graduated from Brentwood, and they seemed to have a good head on their shoulders, and they were motivated. They had goals, and they're just good people. In LA, it's like I always ask people, like, oh, if I knew that they grew up in LA, I would ask them, where did you go to school? And they would say Brentwood. And this happened a few times, right? And so I was like, that school must be doing something right to be popping out these great kids. And so that's when we started digging into the Brentwood School.
Thanks. So questions?
What do you think about Bitcoin and other digital currencies?
Cryptocurrency. It's tough for me because I'm such a non-believer. And my partner at BAM Ventures is a big believer, right? So we have these fights and debates all the time. So we at BAM, we had invested in just one cryptocurrency play. It was called Corbit. It was the largest Korean Bitcoin exchange in Korea, and it just got acquired. And so now my partner Rich is like, dude, I told he's like, all over me about it. But it's when I look at Bitcoin, look, I think it's fascinating with blockchain and the technology that it could bring forth, but at the same time, it's like, what is that worth? I don't know. It's definitely not worth what a Bitcoin is worth, right? And for me, it's kind of like, you can't call yourself a cryptocurrency or call Bitcoin a currency if no one is actually using it to buy anything, right? It's like the definition of currency is you exchange something for another good or a service, but no one's actually cashing in a Bitcoin because you don't know what's going to be valued at tomorrow. I don't know. There's so many things that scare me about it, but there's all those things that excite me about it, right? But for me, it's like I just stay away from things I don't fully comprehend either. Like the whole backstory of the Japanese dude that created 20,000 of these, I don't know. I don't understand it.
Curious what your thoughts are.
Oh yeah, so anyway, I'm not investing in Bitcoin. It was probably a mistake, but we'll see.
Eve.
Thanks so much for sharing, honestly, your stories. I was curious, how did you guys acquire your first 1,000 customers?
At LegalZoom, it was interesting. It talked about, like, when the panel was up here, what I found fascinating was that how much of them kind of networked within their friends at Brentwood and college and so forth. And it was similar with me at LegalZoom. We were not a lot of people know this, but we were the 8th advertiser in the world to pay for a click. Right? So a friend of mine from UCLA ended up working at Idea Labs, and he was working on a project called GoTo.com. And he called me up and said, Brian, I know you're starting this company, LegalZoom. Do you want to test something where you could pay for ranking on a search engine? I said, well, that sounds interesting. He's like, just stick $20 into this account, and we'll see what happens. Right? So we stuck $20 into our GoTo account, and at that point, it was 1 cent per click. Right? It was 1 cent per click. And I remember we would get these, we had the words will, last will, and living trust were the 3 keywords that we bought, right, that we were bidding on. Not even bidding on, there was no bidding, it was like 1 cent per click. So we put it in there, and every day it would go down by 10 clicks. So we would spend like 10 cents a day. The next day we spent like 12 cents. But by day 4, one of those clicks was Sasan Dastardi, our first order, right? And I was like, wow, we spent 28 cents in advertising and we made $79. There must be something to this pay-per-click stuff. And so we really grew LegalZoom with paid search at the earliest days. And that was our real advantage. By the time I had left LegalZoom, which was 8 years into it, the term incorporate, which we were paying 1 cent per click for, ended up costing $22 per click, right? So it really kind of grew, but we had built our moat already, right? Where we were the only company that could actually afford those clicks. And then we would do silly stuff too, like we would make people pay more, like competitors, and then we'd drop our price, and it was kind of a crazy time. But yeah, we grew with pay per click.
Questions?
Wow, you guys are easy.
We got one. So now looking at where the internet is completely international, and the lid's blown off, and it's a completely different world from 2000. If you were to advise people who are getting into the internet space as entrepreneurs, what would you give them as your advice to say how to look for opportunities? Because you're solving a problem. What you did with LegalZoom was solve a problem that needed a solution, right? So that's the basis of an entrepreneur is we look for where problems aren't being solved and we fill the need, right?
Right. So I guess my advice for anyone who's looking to enter into a company or whatever it is, again, it kind of reverts back to what I said about passion. Be passionate about even where you work, right? And really be part of the mission of whatever that company is trying to accomplish. Because it's just so important, right? And it's all about, being part of that team, being part of that culture of building something unique. I would say in terms of, which company to join, it really kind of depends on your risk profile as well, right? I mean, you could join Facebook or Snapchat or whatever, or you could join a pure startup, and it's risk rewards, right? Oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes. Yeah, I mean, there's so many, great startups, in LA that are looking for great people, and San Francisco. It's nonstop, truthfully. I mean, at BAM Ventures, we probably get about 20 to 25 proposals a day of ideas from entrepreneurs. And that's just in LA, almost, yeah.
Thanks. Ishai.
Are you
Mason.
are you still involved in any of the main companies you started, or are you just focused on BAM?
No, I am and I'm not. The thing that I'm kind of different than a lot of entrepreneurs, I guess, because I love the startup. I love starting companies. I love building them, getting them traction, and getting them to a certain place. But then I don't like operating them. I really don't. It's like once a company hits about 500 employees, I kind of just like, I can't deal with it, honestly. It's like I don't want to be someone's therapist. I don't want to sit there and talk about org charts all day long. It's like I just want to build. So that's when I'll bring in an outside CEO and I'll move on. I'll usually stay on the board. So I do a lot of board work, but I'm constantly thinking of my next kind of company.
And BAM is all earliest stage?
Yeah, so BAM does seed and pre-seed.
Okay.
So again, we invest in entrepreneurs, and oftentimes we'll invest in an entrepreneur who doesn't even have an idea. I mean, we've done that a few times because we just think they're great, and we'll write them a blank check and say, when you start something, this is your money.
Ishai.
Brian, how have you seen the tech scene evolve in LA, or the venture scene evolve in the last 10 years?
It's come a really long way. There was a period where LA was, it just really it didn't have an ecosystem. It was interesting because, LA will never be the Valley, right? We just can't, because we don't have a great-grandfather named Fairchild Semiconductor, and we don't have grandparents named Yahoo and eBay, right? We don't have that in LA. And so for us, it was always a matter of, to build an ecosystem, you need two things, right? You need talent and you need capital. And we had neither for a long time. But recently, with Snap, with Dollar Shave Club, with Honest to a lesser point in terms of, some of these Tinder and Demand kind of TrueCar. There's some great companies down in Los Angeles that have brought a lot of talent. And with that talent comes capital as well. So for the first time, we have 3 funds that are venture funds that are based in Los Angeles of size. And when I say size, not Valley size, but these are 2 to 500 million type funds, which is significant for Los Angeles. And so if you look at the history of LA and LA tech, the earliest companies had to monetize very quickly, which is why if you look at the most successful businesses like GoTo, like Overture, right? Or LegalZoom, PriceGrabber, Shopzilla, all these types of companies, it was all about generating money because we had to, right? We never had VCs that would back, a social platform that you didn't know how you were going to monetize it, right? Until you got to scale. We just never had that liberty. But today, I think we do. And I think you're going to see a lot more exciting companies coming out of the Los Angeles ecosystem, especially as the Snap employees start moving on to start their next businesses as well. So I think the ecosystem is still young, but growing strong.
you talk a little about your idea process? Like, is it all super, you seem like more of an organic idea guy, but is it, you like walking the dog and come up with an idea, or are you like intentionally brainstorming? Like, how do you, what's your approach?
You know, it's a blessing and a curse, truthfully, because I come up with a lot of ideas. Like, and Mira knows, my wife knows, like, every night I'll say, what do you think of this? You know, like, what do you think of that? And I would say 90% of the ideas are like crap, like really bad ideas. But some of them are actually pretty good. And then some of them I'll just keep thinking about, and I'll just keep thinking about. I'm like, I think that's gonna work, right? And then I'll do a little research in terms of market research and so forth. And if I'm satisfied with that, then I'll probably go do it. So the process is I'll just come up with these ideas, and I'll just kind of keep asking Mira about it, and a couple friends, like, poke some holes in this, what's wrong with it. The other thing I do, and don't take this the wrong way, but I'll also kind of show the idea to a couple Harvard MBAs that I know, and if they hate the idea, I give the idea bonus points. No, really, 'cause it's it's true. Yeah, so that's kind of like my process.
So what would be your ideal software to do market research?
Your company. No.
I have software,
Yeah?
archetypal software.
Nice. I'll use that next time.
Yeah, talk to me.
Thank you.
Adam.
Hi. So now that you're on the board, what would you like to see for the future of Brentwood?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, my number one thing was getting better food for lunch, and that actually happened this year. It actually happened, which was awesome. The second thing was new bathrooms at the lower school, and that happened. So that's amazing. The third is, I don't know. I mean, the school's great. Honestly, it doesn't really need all that much more. I'd really love to see more participation from alumni in terms of giving, because really we're under some capital constraints, truthfully, in terms of finishing off the middle school, and that's an incredibly important project that we've got to get done. So dig deep and give. But yeah, it's really about the capital needs of the school.
You said you look for great people to invest in. Beyond like passion, what are the things
You know, for me, it's we love investing in entrepreneurs who basically, this is what they've got, right? This is all they've got, and this is all they're going to live and breathe. People who it's so easy to give up. Honestly, it's so easy, and especially at that stage, we want to invest behind people who it's like, if in their minds, it's like, if I don't get this done, my life is over. Those are the types that we like to invest in. Smart, hungry, hardworking, but also nice. I don't like investing in mean people. It's like life is too short. But I like working with people and investing in people that I would want to spend time with, right, and get to know. So that's definitely it. And it's I know that sounds kind of like, high level, and it kind of is, but it's actually harder than it seems to find these types. Look, I mean, there's a whole generation of millennials, and a lot of you are millennials, so I'm not talking about you. No one in this room. But you'll be surprised at, like, what people ask of you. They're like, yeah, I want to work there, but I want to work from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And by the way, in 2 months, I'm taking a month off to go to Venice, Italy for my first time. And can you maybe wait 3 months so I can start? It's like, dude, that's not the way it works, right? It's like, it's kind of crazy, truthfully. It's like, it's a different world for me because it's just different. And it's like, again, it's like, I'm not saying anyone in this room is like that, but there are folks like that. It's just shocking to me.
Or they want to go to Coachella.
Coachella. No, it's because look, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to start something. It's work, right? No one is ever going to just show up at your house and say, "Here's a bucket of success," right? You're going to have to work for it, and hopefully that work is enjoyable because you're passionate and you believe in what you're doing and you're having fun doing it, right? But it is work, and there's no getting around it. There's no like just easy path to build something great. Right? I always tell people, you know what work is? Work is a vacation from poverty. That's what work is, right? It's like go get it done, work your ass off, and maybe something good will happen.
Brian.
When you were early on in your career and even now, how did you go about setting goals for yourself? And then with that, how did you kind of strike the work-life balance?
Good question.
It's a great question, especially the work-life balance thing. That's getting back to my work thing, right? There is no balance. There really isn't. I mean, when I was building LegalZoom and ShoeDazzle and even the early days of Honest, it was tough because I was never home, right? I was always working, and even when I was at home, I was working, and that's kind of sometimes what it takes, right? Well, not sometimes, all the time. You got to be all in. Right, and I know this is going to sound terrible, but I often say being an entrepreneur is kind of a young person's game, right? Because it becomes exponentially harder when you get a little older, right? When you have a family and you have responsibility and you can't take a pay cut to zero, right? And it just becomes harder, right? And so, you know, it's pretty amazing because I'm 46 years old now, and we invest in 22-year-olds. 23-year-olds, 25 on the old side, right? So that's who we invest in because they've got the commitment and the time to put in.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wanted to. Some of you probably don't know Dr. Mike, who's our head of school. And when Emily and I told him about this Tech Summit, and he really wanted to join us. So, Dr. Mike, I want you to, yeah.
Thank you, Dave. How about we give a round of applause for Dave and Emily for putting this together? And anytime you're in LA, come on by and see the school. It's changed a lot in the last 3 months.
Yeah, for you don't know, we have the stadium field has a turf, an artificial turf, and it's not tires, it's organic, and we water it, okay? And it has lights on it, and the tennis courts have lights, the swimming pool has lights, and the softball field has lights. And then the middle school field is a big construction site that will in 2 years, in June of 2019, open our new middle school, 72,000 square feet, against the Barrington Place hillside. So remember when you used to tell people, I go to Brentwood, and I go, where is that? I said, well, you'd have to say, well, you have to peer between the bushes on Sunset Boulevard, and that we will now have a public face on Barrington Place. And we're going to bring the 6th grade over, and there'll be a middle school of 6, 7, 8. We're going to take 20 or 22 public school kids in the 6th grade, because LA Unified ends in 5th grade. Right now we get 65 apps for 2 spots in 6th grade. We'll be able to take some great families and great kids. 7th grade will take 75 to 80, like we do probably mostly private school kids. And in 9th grade we'll take 25 or 30 to be graduating down the line 150, 160 kids. Our biggest class to date is the Mason Moss class of 2008, 123. And we have about 129 ninth graders right now. And so they will be the next big Brentwood class. And we'll slowly increase our enrollment to where we are graduating that many kids. And people always worry about us getting bigger. And I say, well, we have lacrosse, we have water polo, we have swimming. We have a very big robotics program, debate program, film program now. We have the Madrigals, another singing group. We have another jazz band. And we're still fielding all those different new programs with the same number of kids. And so it's going to really be great when we can, really put more kids into those special programs, and there'll be more new programs. And Dr. Mike always says we're building buildings, but it's not about buildings. It's about the programs that will go into those buildings that really make what's happening really exciting right now. And so it's, you know, I mean, you are, you know, anytime you're going to be in LA, please stop by just for a quick visit, you know, see, you know, check if Brian's right about the food in the cafeteria. I'll buy you lunch. Emily and I will buy you lunch in the cafeteria. And it's actually really good. We have a omelet bar in the morning and a waffle bar, and we have spa water. We have.
You gotta buy it. Yeah.
I'll buy it. So yeah.
Have the cookies changed?
What happened to snack bar cards? Snack bar cards?
Now it's swipe.
Swipe.
ID.
Yeah.
ID.
You have an Eagle card. It's called an Eagle card, Mason. Eagle card. So if you want to see it, come up and I'll show you it. So anyway, well, thanks so much for coming. We'll be around.
Indeed. We're also, for all the Bay Area people, we will be back here Friday night, February 2nd, at Jeff Cooper's house. We'll send you more details if you're up here.
Yeah, so Jeff and Nicole Cooper are hosting it. It was great.
Yeah.
Last year they were leaving Brian and Josie Freckman's house, and Jeff turned to me and said, "Mr. Reed, we'd love to host it." So, you know, I put that in my head. And a month ago I called him and emailed him, and within, you know, an hour he was saying, "Nicole and I would love to do that." So, and then there's someone in this room building a house, and I think he's gonna host it my last year at Brentwood, which is in 2 years. So,
precious.
yes, he said it'll be finished in 18 months, so we got it. Jody.
I just want to say, I graduated in 1977. Woo! And the third graduating class at Brentwood. And I just want to say that we started an amazing school. We have no clue what you guys do. And every time I get that magazine, I'm so proud because I share it with my friends. And they go, "We don't have a school like that. That's not our high school." And I go, "This is amazing." And I feel emotional because there's something about what Brentwood did. And it wasn't about us. It was about a vision that most high schools never get to have. And if I was a kid now,